It is as if we have the guys who engineered the mortgage crisis by selling all those mortgage-backed securities and almost nuking the entire global economy. We're going to them and saying, hey, guys, teach us about the housing market. Maybe we'll put you in charge again. They have messed up everything. Fauci, Walensky. I know Dr. Birx is going around now. Dr. Birx should be ashamed. Her whole life was building to this moment, right? Her whole professional career building to this moment, and she absolutely failed. Abject, disastrous failure from the public health establishment. It ain't over, folks. It ain't over till Fauci resigns. You're going to notice the moment that Fauci doesn't want to put up with Republicans in control of Congress is when all of a sudden things start to feel a little bit less tyrannical about COVID. And if you're wondering why am I even bringing this up, here's a headline just from today. COVID hospitalization rate in NYC soars 70% in a month. The ICU patient tally has nearly doubled. And BA.5 more easily transmits and escapes immunity, leading many to call it the worst version of Omicron yet. So this is interesting because, for one thing, here this is from the NBC piece here, NBC New York. They say Omicron subvariant BA.5 is estimated to be 82% of COVID cases in New York, according to the CDC. It is now 4 times as vaccine resistant as its predecessor, and has been linked to a heightened risk of reinfection. Now, I'm not saying this. NBC is saying this. But can I just note here, this is interesting. We now have a variant that they're telling us is a lot more resistant to the vaccine, as in makes the vaccine worthless. I thought that as we went along here, more vaccines means less virus, we're safer, everything is better. Vaccine number 5 coming your way soon. That's the truth. Booster shot number 3 is going to have to be here by September. And maybe even a whole new range of shots and boosters, at least according to Pfizer. And Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer. Have you ever listened to the Albert, the CEO of Pfizer? I think he is Greek. And he sort of always sounds like, maybe you need shots 6, 7, 8, 9. This will be good for you. He's saying we're going to have a whole range of shots starting in September, a new range. And I think those are for Omicron. But I think they must be for original Omicron. You know, the first version of Omicron. Not Coke Zero, but like Coca-Cola. Or what? Didn't they try clear Coke for a while? That was a thing, right? Didn't last very long. Turns out people wanted their caramel color in their Coca-Cola. So we're going to get a whole new range of shots. I think it's noteworthy. I think it's something to take note of, that they're now reporting on this vaccine, of this variant of COVID is even more resistant to defense by the vaccine than previous ones. Almost like because what you're supposed to have, you would think, is less and less virulent versions of the COVID virus as it moves along. And also more and more boosters should give you more and more protection, right? Well, 4 times as vaccine resistant as its predecessor, according to this NBC News report based off of CDC data. What is going on? The problem with asking the question, what is going on, is that it immediately gets pushed by the media to people who have been wrong about everything. Everything. They've been wrong about how well the shots would work. They were wrong to mandate the shots. They were wrong that the shots would stop the spread. They were wrong that vaccines would work. They were wrong that masks would work. They were wrong that N95s would bring down the curve. They were wrong about lockdowns. They were wrong. Go down the list. Those people somehow, it is as if we have the guys who engineered the mortgage crisis by selling all those mortgage-backed securities and almost nuking the entire global economy. We're going to them and saying, hey, guys, teach us about the housing market. Maybe we'll put you in charge again. They have messed up everything. Fauci, Walensky. I know Dr. Birx is going around now. Dr. Birx should be ashamed. Her whole life was building to this moment, right? Her whole professional career building to this moment, and she absolutely failed. Abject, disastrous failure from the public health establishment with COVID. I mean, notice how you're not even hearing we have 1 million people, they say, that died in this country from COVID. Now, they also aren't doing the data analysis to tell us how much of that is actually from COVID versus with COVID, which would, I think, dramatically change the numbers. But their position is still, even after we get all this wrong, shut up and do what you're told. We don't want to hear it. And we've played some clips for you of Dr. Fauci, who is on a show it's a digital show over at thehill.com that I have a connection to because I launched it actually at The Hill in 2018. It's called Rising. This was back when I was doing a syndicated radio show for Premier 6 to 9, but in the mornings, really early, I was co-hosting a show back then with Crystal Ball, who is a Democrat, and we were doing a left-right show in the mornings, Rising. I left. That show was then, my slot was then taken over by a fellow named Sagar Enjeti. He's a very, very good guy. He took over, and then they both left, and then they restaffed the show with Robbie Suave from Reason and a couple of other people whom I just don't know. I know Robbie a little bit. I don't know the others. There's some other Democrats and centrists, and they've had a kind of rotating cast. But I'm bringing this up because Robbie and Batya Ungar Sargon, Batya, I think I got her name right, Batya Ungar Sargon, interviewed Fauci. They're the ones that got Fauci to say, I never recommended lockdowns.
There were authorities that made different decisions than the CDC's recommendations, for example, on school closures, and they did not see higher levels of child mortality when it comes to COVID. And meanwhile, the schools that did close down were now seeing just disastrous levels of learning loss among poor children, children of color, mental health crisis. I wonder if you would recommend locking down schools if you had to do it all over again.
Well, again, it's first of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. You're asking me questions. You're talking about the CDC is the public health agency that uses their epidemiologists and their science-based approach to make recommendations. Clearly, whenever you close schools, there are collateral effects that are negative.
Which was a great moment for those of us who are the anti-Fauciites, because that is just a bald-faced lie. That is as clear a lie as if he might as well tell us, and we're also going to redefine recession. We're going to redefine the word recommend. When I tell the president, you need to do this because the entire health establishment agrees with me, and if you don't, you're basically a mass murderer, I would not call that a recommendation. Basically the game that Fauci's going to be left playing here. But they had him on this show. They had him on the Rising show. I interviewed Fauci. He doesn't even remember this. I interviewed Fauci on Rising in 2019, I think, about the flu. And it was squeezed in between like an interview about, the best way to make an apple pie this fall. I mean, it was a real kind of throwaway segment. We're like, oh, Dr. Fauci, the flu season's coming up. So I didn't, because we hadn't had COVID. And at that point, he was just a guy in a lab coat that every year was like, wash your hands. If you wash your hands and you mitigate measures properly, that was basically what the guy used to do. He was the wash your hands guy. Go back and research what he did, what he was pushing for in the early days of HIV in terms of public awareness and prevention, and how they got that very wrong as well. Birx was involved in that too. These people, the public health apparatus, these are like the health commissars who have just been in these roles a long time, no accountability, just sort of sticking around. And it's a huge health bureaucracy, and people want to trust people in those health roles. Anyway, back to Rising. So Fauci did that show, and to their credit, Robbie Suave and Batya Ungar Sargon did they did a pretty good job. I mean, I saw some clips from that interview. They asked Fauci some real questions. And so, I always give credit where it's due. What was interesting, I didn't even realize this, was that management over at the Hill apparently would not allow Kim Iverson, who has become a pretty big name over there and has a substantial audience, wouldn't allow her to interview Fauci. Because why do you think that is, everybody? Why would somebody who is a host on a show not be allowed to interview Fauci? Because she says things like the vaccines don't stop the spread. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I'm sure that Fauci's people made this a condition of him even appearing on the show. I would wager that is what happened here, that Fauci's people would say, oh, we can't. Now, would they say that in an email? No. Would they say that on the phone? Yeah. I remember, I could tell you when I was there, there was a concern because they had the director of Planned Parenthood on with me, and they know that I am pro-life and think that Planned Parenthood does terrible things. And I was like, I'm going to ask the questions I'm going to ask. She can come on or not. We're not playing this game of, oh, well, we need to be nice to the Planned Parenthood boss. So this is not unusual in these environments where people really want to get a certain name. They really want to get a certain interview, and they try to lean on talent to back off as part of it. I remember I interviewed who is the absolute nincompoop, the total moron from the show about the witches. Producer Mark, you can help. Remember the Charmed, Alyssa Milano. I interviewed Alyssa Milano years ago when I was at the Hill, also on this show Rising as a correspondent for Rising Effectively. And her people complained afterwards that I was too, he should be fired. He was too, I just asked her questions like, wait, what? Do you know what an assault rifle is? The answer is no, of course. So that was fun.
Driven by partisan politics can see that they're just ridiculous ideas. Ridiculous ideas. Absurdity.
He's going to happen, yeah.
He's being investigated federally investigated. I mean, he should not be allowed to appoint anybody.
Well,
and the fact he should not be allowed to appoint anybody.
In the era of the Clintons being federally investigated, if that were enough to stop you from being able to hold office, I don't think anybody would have had a...
For what?
I was just asking questions. I was just doing my thing. And she had a little chihuahua that came over and marked its territory right next to my feet before the interview, which I have to tell you was definitely a sign. That chihuahua smelled the right wing all over me, and it was not happy with me. But anyway, Kim Iverson quit, to her credit. So I just invited her, just so you know, I invited her to come on the show and talk to us about this and set it all straight. Kim Iverson wanted to interview Fauci. She clearly is willing to ask. I mean, at this point, if you're not willing to ask questions about Fauci in an aggressive way, you're a drone. You're not a person capable of independent thought. I mean, Fauci's a disaster. He's the worst public health bureaucrat in the history of the United States, probably the history of the world. This guy is an abject disaster and a fraud and a liar. And I have a feeling that she recognizes some of this, and so they wouldn't let her. But just think about that. Fauci won't go into a place where there are people who will ask him the tough questions. The only time you ever get that is when he has to appear before Congress, as he's a federal employee. But he will not go against opposition media. All the things that were mandated, they will mask up your child. They will shut down your school. They will shut down your business. They take all that power in their hands, but they don't want to take any harsh questions. Oh, no. It makes me sad on the inside when people question the measures about droplet spread. I am not going to relent on this. That guy has got to be removed from his job, must resign or be fired.